couple times from our place. That's quite a walk up here.
One teacher was going to go home from school with us one night, and we were going to show her, I suppose, this cave. So there was this hole in the ground, and of course we had no flashlights or lanterns or anything, but we did get down on our bellies and slide into the opening because we just stayed right in the first opening there.
Two men from La Crosse came up, and they said they wanted to open a cave north of Spring Grove, and they were going to finance it, and they wanted to know if we could get 2 or 3 to come and look at it and see what we thought about it. So Joe, Just, and I went over there and we talked it over, and we said we could open it. We'll get some local boys to help us.
Joe, just coming from Harmony, seemed like to us like a long way off in those days.
Manual labor, digging holes, and they would blast this stuff out, and the way we carried it out was we had a 2x4 that was about 8 feet long, and we put a little bottoms to that, and then one man carried it like this and walked out, and we would walk out with about a half a wheelbarrow full. And we went back down in that cave about 300 feet, I think it was.
Oh, I'm sure if you keep tunneling through, you'll find a lot of these caves would probably come out someplace else. There's a lot of branches that branch off.
So we went back with some tools, and we hired a few boys, farm boys. And during the winter, while we cleaned it out and fixed the entrance up, cemented the stone and put paths in there.
So this was Indian territory. And you can kind of almost see would be a beautiful place for the Indians to roam, wouldn't it? And live in the hills.
But when we opened the catacombs at the entrance, we dug up 2 graves right there. And there was a skeleton, perfect skeleton, the one of the head. And there was bones and everything. We run into them first.
The brochure has a picture of an Indian, and the road signs were painted of this Indian head, and it said the Catacombs of Yucatan, and it would give a direction. But the wooden signs were huge, maybe 4 by 6 or larger, and they went around the country and put them up in all the small towns around.
Oh, Ginter and I had been to a movie. We were recording, and they were fixing that road from Maryland's up through the valley there, you know, grading it and stuff. Just newly graded. And it started to rain and rain and rain. I was kind of worried about the road going home. He didn't worry, but I did. And I told him, I said, when we got up to Marilyn's place there's that corn crib, you know. I said, I think you better stop right here and drive in between those 2 cribs and put your chains on. You'll never make it up home. So he decided he would. And he got stuck in there. And then we didn't know what to do. He says, I'm stuck, what'll I do? I said, you'll have to go up to the house and try and get Louis Benson awake so he pulls you out. And Mrs. Louis was such an awful woman to swear in and stuff. I knew she would. He went and he rapped at the door, and she says, who the hell is out there? And then he had to tell her that he was stuck. I don't know, she read off some other lingo. She was that kind, you know. And then Louis got up and he says, I'll be right down, I get my clothes on. So he came and he pulled us out.
Must have been a heart attack. We were going to a house party. In those days they used to have house parties, you know. And we were about halfway to their place where she let out one scream and that was it. That's how fast it went. That was in 36, January of 36. She was 43 and a little over 43 anyway.
We lived in Rooster Valley until I was 18, and then I left home and got married. Short.
And when spring came and the weather got warm, we decided we'd put up a dance hall. And the local lumber yard agreed to furnish the lumber, and we'd pay them a little as we could. And we got a truck from the Ford garage in Spring Grove. They leased it to us for a little or nothing.
It was kind of a place for a family gathering, you know. It wasn't just the adults that went to those dances. Everybody brought their children.
But I never did date anybody when I was young. I never had enough money to take them even to lunch.
Well, they had that building there where they had the dances upstairs and then the lunchroom and downstairs. They used to have dances on weekends a lot of times.
Full of pies and
That's when I worked
cookies,
down
and then they made hamburgers. And of course, the Spring Grove Pop was a popular thing.
So we got the dance hall built, and Bill Sherman, he was a violinist. Someone played the piano, I don't know who, and we had some dances, and then later on we got some bigger orchestras out of La Crosse.
But that hill
And we
going
had
up there, you know,
good crowds.
there were two Gousted boys that went off on that, and their car went down through the woods ahead of us when we was going home one night. I think we would go from here to that tree, 50 or 75 feet. We found the car and we pulled him out of there, my dad and me. And my brother was along too. And then the traffic was stopped for quite a while, and I just don't know whatever happened to the boys. I know one of them was bleeding pretty bad. And my dad was a guy that kind of had been hauling doctors when he was younger too. So he wasn't scared of blood or anything, you know.
Found him laying dead. He was going to take up a load of feed up to the pigs. He'd been in town too late Saturday, and he didn't quite make it. It got dark, you know, in the fall. And when I went to do chicken chores, I thought, well, it's funny, he hasn't got that pickup up there yet. And I went and I looked, and here he was gone. Oh.
Mrs. Benson, her husband Louis, they lived in a farmhouse right below the cave. It was just, that bluff, I guess, was about 300 feet high, probably. The buildings were right up against the bluff. Martha, she was a kind that wanted to keep everybody in line, and she never came up to the cave, but she'd holler. We could hear her from down below, and we'd go at the edge, and she would scold us and tell us what we should be doing. And one day we were kind of widening it out, the cave, and there was a rock there. It's quite a large rock. And the boys put it kind of at the edge of the bluff, and somebody said it's going to roll down the bluff, but they didn't move it. A day or two later, somebody wanted to give it a kick or something, and it rolled down the bluff and hit Martha's chicken coop, and she had some setting hens setting on eggs. She was going to hatch some chickens, and this rock knocked the nests off the side of the chicken coop, and they all fell down. The hens ran out, and the eggs broke the eggs, and we could hear Martha for quite a ways that day. Feathers flew more ways than one, not only from the old hens, but Martha too.
But when we opened the catacombs at the entrance, we dug up 2 graves right there. And there was a skeleton, perfect skeleton, the one, of the head. And there was bones and everything. We run into them first.
Well, they did find a couple skeletons.
The brochure has a picture of an Indian, and the road signs were painted of this Indian head, and it said the Catacombs of Yucatan, and it would give a direction. But the wooden signs were huge.
The one head was very good. We started to get careful, see? And I don't know, I think probably we were down 1.5 feet in the dirt.
It was a different guy. He was
and that's all
real
the thing
thin
that I
and
ever seen.
wiry.
The skeleton was going in there all the way.
But I don't know where Joe came from. He could make people really believe that the Indians are still out there in the woods somewhere.
Catacombs of Yucatan, the catacombs, beauty spot in all the land, beauty spot in all the land.
I remember her daughter had a big straw hat on, and her mother said she'd better wear it. She didn't want to wear it. She was quite pretty, you know, and she didn't want to look funny in a hat. So, but she did wear it, so, you know.
It was dirt roads at that time, so we had lots of dust in our house. But we did go over to some of the dances. It was fun watching Benora Orr, and particularly watching her and who she would be dancing with, and sometimes asking them to dance with
right
us.
By the dance hall, they had a little cage, and in this cage they had a fox.
Oh, jeepers cats, they had pretty good crowds for dances.
This cage was fastened like to a small tree, so he had a little bit shade, but the poor thing was in that cage and all by himself. But of course kids like to try and feed him and look at him, poor thing. It wasn't something that made the fox happy.
We decided to build a few cabins. I think we built 3. We was trying to fence around the cave
One day when they were grading on that road,
and couldn't dig a post hole.
this big caterpillar, I suppose a bulldozer or something, was coming along, and one of the workers saw this clay pot.
So we got the bright idea to put a stick of dynamite in to blow a hole the post hole for the corner post.
And he tried to flag down the guy on the caterpillar, but he didn't see him, so he couldn't run in front and grab it, you know, or else he would have been hit.
And we blowed a big hole, and we couldn't find any dirt to put back in it.
When the caterpillar hit it, the paint was still liquid in that pot.
It makes me think of everything. But we carried all that stuff out of there, and we was there for a long time carrying that and just dumped it over the hill.
Some of the people got lit up too, I understand, not only the cave.
The hills in those days were bare. There were some high trees, you mean some of the oak trees, but we didn't have all the brush and that around here at all. It was, I think they may have had
It was
some
a big rock, kind of a ledge, and that was our resting spot because it was really steep until we got up there. Of course, Helen was a little bit older, and she'd kind of run ahead of me, so she'd wait for me there. And then we'd open our lunch pails, and these chickadees, they'd come and they'd sit on our shoulder. We'd have a few crumbs of bread, and we'd hold out our hand, and these chickadees would sit, you know, and pick at the lunch. And they waited for us every night because they would be singing and chirping away.
We both started school together in the carrier school right down over the hill here. She was only 5 and probably not quite ready for school, and in one of those muddy days, we had high overshoes on, but Myrtle got stuck in the mud up in the field here, and she could not get out, and I could not get her out of the mud.
My way in life was when I wanted water, I wanted hot water, and I never used coffee. All the years I worked on road work too, I used just plain hot water. And I'd come to a restaurant and everybody had their thermos filled, and I'd ask the ladies or that, I said, just put in plain good hot water. Why, what's the matter with you, she said. And I said, I never used coffee, and I said I was brought up this way, and I used to use milk and sugar in it, I said. But now I said I've gotten used to just plain water wherever I am, and that's all I used.
And I said, yeah, I'd go and plow corn because I was a farm boy. I plowed a lot of corn. Of course, I expected to have a team of horses on one-row corn plow. Well, it ended up he had instead of a regular corn plow, this was the one that only plowed one side. You had to make the round to plow on both sides of a row, and one horse. I plowed all day.
I got $20 a month for him if I could take and drive his horses and plow it. And he had some devils of horses, and he wanted them broke. I said I couldn't break anything. Young, and my dad bought Broncos from Houston and brought them up, and we broke them, and we was used to it. Them Broncos.
There was a farmer lived a couple miles from there that was a good artist. And we got him to paint the signs, and he painted real beautiful signs with Indians and a picture of the cave, and he'd paint signs about 4 by 6, and we put them up around the country. And I'm sorry we didn't save some of them because they were real, he was a real artist. He was just beautiful.
I wasn't more than 135, 40 pounds. But they had to have a guy in front of a place where this mixture was to throw in and take out dirt quickly. And he said, Oscar, he said, I'm going to pay you if you go up there. It's dirty. He said, it's awful dirty up in there. But he said, if you can take that, he said, the foreman said, I'll give you 70 cents an hour. Well, I stuck it up right by that old hole, and once I lost my cap. And it went in the mixture. And I guess my head got full of cement. And there's 2 old Polacks from Winona where they smoothed the road at the end. And they come up to me and they said, say sonny, don't you dare do anything but wash your head with cold water and keep on with it. Otherwise that your hair of yours is going to stick in you all right once, so they said.
And we had a drought that year.
And then I started going out to work at different places.
The only moisture we got was in March. We got about 2 inches of snow, and that's the only snow we got all winter. And the ground was so dry.
And then when my mother died, I was there with Dad then until...
The wind blew every darn day.
38.
We got the ground ready to sow the oats, and he said, I don't know whether we should sow it or not. It don't rain.
We had auction, and
so then he said, well,
then we moved to Spring Grove.
Maybe we better sow it. Maybe it'll rain.
My dad and myself.
So anyway, hitched 4 horses on the drill and took the grain off the field. I filled the boxes, and it was quite a long field.
My brother was in CC camp.
Dust was blowing so you couldn't see 20 feet ahead of you.
My dad might sell a great big pig for $3, $4. Borrowing $8 would take a long time to repay.
But things were tough. I think we got $1 a couple to dance. And
we used to see the boys would escort their girlfriends outside for a while, and then they'd come back in again. And we had to keep track of that too,
You could walk from the ground level up above right into the dance hall.
Well, we had a good time down there.
On the outside they had a ladder so you could go up on top, and that was kind of a lookout. And how beautiful it was to stand at night and look out over the valley and the moon shining on the water down below.
Our treasurer lived in Harmony, and he'd come up on the weekends and pick up the money. Supposed to pay the bills, and we found that he wasn't paying the bills. So one Sunday after we found out, when he came up, we told him he couldn't have the money, but he took it. And we got so angry that I had a car that was pretty fast. Three of us got in, and we drove about 20 miles before we caught up with him, and we run him in the ditch and took the money away from him and told him never to come back.
Be a little forgiving, take me back in your heart. How can I go on living now that we're apart? If you knew what I've been through, then you know why I ask you, have you ever been lonely? Have you ever been blue?
And there was some drinking going on a little bit. I think they served beer there.
On the 4th of July, we had a big celebration and dance, and it was a good-looking farm girl came to dance, and I danced with her 3 or 4 times, and I took her home, and so we went to a show that week, and we seen each other quite often. She lived only just a couple of miles from the cave. Father had a farm right west of Blackhammer there, and so I think it was about the 15th of July why Joe and I decided that we wasn't going to make it, and if Martha Benson, who owned the cave at that time, she was kind of antsy. She wanted to take it over, so we thought we'd just go on home back to Harmony and let her have it. And so a couple of nights before we left, why I was out with the Guynets, and I said, well, I'm going back to Harmony, and times are so hard that I don't think I can ever come back to see you because I can't afford to buy the gas. So I said, we either get married or say goodbye. So we talked it over and we decided to get married. So we went to Cresco, and we were married on the 18th, and that was 60 years ago this last July.
My father was quite a conservative man.
At that time, money was
And
pretty scarce.
He would sometimes make comments about
If we had a bottle of pop
Joe Just Green.
or one treat, I suppose that was something that we looked forward to.
And my mother made sponge cake, sold it piece by piece.
She had a child
They
beforehand.
had candy bars and
In those days, that was
Ringo Pop,
wasn't good, you know.
coffee, I guess, probably sometimes.
And, she was kind of,
They used to have dances on weekends.
well, I don't know how to say it, decent, like kind of looked down
And
on,
that's when I worked down there, was
you know, a little bit.
at the lunchroom.
Nice girl, too.
But I never drove.
My wife used to be a real hard worker. Took care of the garden, and she done everything. When I was on the farm, she helped me when we was farming with haying and everything. She was a good tractor driver. But now the last year and a half, she's got arthritis so bad in her feet and ankles, they just pain her. And if you know Florine, you know, Florine's getting more humpback than Flossie.
They started to come out there and crowd us.
But people didn't go that much in those days as they do now. You know, money was scarce and people were busy farming the hard way.
And then Martha and Louie, they kind of took it over, and I think they had 4 or 5 dances after that.
Long time ago.
Times are so hard that it just wasn't enough income to keep it going. It just wasn't feasible, so they gave it up too.
The birds are singing, keeping us entertain.